tired because their body is still spending energy after a perceived threat, pressure, meeting, message. So most of us are not tired because we need another productivity hack. And that's kind of the trap that we fall into. It's like, what's the next hack to fix my energy problems? Or after this mental load is over even. And so this can be further compounded or induced by screens, pressure, caffeine, nicotine, the age of AI, decision load, and life stress that keeps our systems, our bodies switched on. The question is not whether you know how to breathe. The question is whether your breathing is helping you recover or if it's keeping you switched on in the background.
Hi there, welcome to the replay of our after hours discussions with professional coaches. Your exclusive complimentary Sunday session for all of our community around the world, where coaching minds unite with our people to create real world results. I am Adrian Cahill, your host and founder of the Motivate community, and more recently, Monday Morning Motivation. As a global trainer in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, coaching, and hypnosis, this weekly gathering brings some of my colleagues from trainings, my fellow students and coaches all together in one place where we can discuss, share, help change the world by delivering free, quality information that's here to help you transform.
So I like to think of this in terms of our bodies having batteries, essentially, and those batteries hold energy. And a lot of us are leaking a lot more energy than we should be. And as you can see here, your body may be spending energy it does not need to spend. So before we get into this, I want to ask a question. And if those of you who have access in the chat, you can just simply type your answers. And so I want you to rate on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, your energy. 2, your mood. And 3, your level of stress. I could say for me, my energy is 7, mood, I guess 10 would be the best mood. My mood is also 7. And stress, I would say is about a 5. I see Jay says 1 a little low, Harry, energy 5, mood 6, stress 3. One thing I forgot to do on this call, I noticed a lot of AI note takers on here, and I might go ahead and do the same. Okay. Yeah, so my energy, mood, stress, 7, 7, 5. George, 8, 8, and 6. Darko, 8, 8, and 4. Jay, 6, 8, and 9. Okay. So the follow-up question to that would be, but we don't want to go too far into that, would be why did we choose those numbers? And for the energy and mood, why didn't we choose a lower number? And for the stress, why didn't we choose a higher number? If you want to share the chat, you can, but the point here is just to get a baseline metric of where we're at now, and then see how that changes over time. And so if you see the breath pacing in here, maybe you're already following that, maybe not, but we'll come back to that in a moment. So most of us are not tired because we need another productivity hack. And that's kind of the trap that we fall into. It's like, what's the next hack to fix my energy problems? And so I think there's a better solution than finding the next hack. And people are tired because their body is still spending energy after a perceived threat, pressure, meeting, message, or after this mental load is over even. And so this can be further compounded or induced by screens, pressure, caffeine, nicotine, the age of AI, decision load, and life stress that keeps our systems, our bodies switched on. And so the question is not whether you know how to breathe. The question is whether your breathing is helping you recover or if it's keeping you switched on in the background. So we may feel mentally busy, physically tense, or tired but wired. So some of this may resonate with some of you. So today we want to find your energy. So we're trying to get some signals out of our bodies. And all you have to do now is just breathe normally through your nose. And so we're going to do what's called the BOLT score. So this is called the body oxygen level test, or a few different names for it. And it's a fairly simple test, but somewhat subjective test. So what I want you to do now is just simply tune into your breath and just breathe normally. And what I'm going to ask you to do, don't do it yet, but what I'm going to ask you to do is to hold your breath. And when you hold your breath, you're going to plug your nose just to signal that you're holding your breath. So we don't need to do it now. And then while you're doing that, while you're holding your breath, you're simply tuning in and looking for that first clear signal that you need to breathe. And when you have that first clear signal that you need to breathe, you can simply let go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to time it. So we're going to see how long it takes to get that very first clear signal that you have to breathe. And so I'm going to time it here with a stopwatch. Can you see my stopwatch, or are you still on the? Are you still on my presentation slide?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so you see the stopwatch. So I'm going to count down from 3, and then you're just going to breathe normally. And after the next normal exhale, you're going to hold your breath until you get that clear signal that you have to breathe. In 3, 2, 1. So most of us should have a number by name. If you're still holding, you're probably cheating. And so we can put our numbers in the chat. So mine was, I think, about 19, let's say. And so this is, I think, a relatively good metric we can use just to see where we're at with our baseline. So what I want you to do is just simply use this as a tool to see where you're at. And so If we're under 10, we definitely have a lot of room for improvement. 10 to 20 is probably somewhere in the normal range for most people most of the time. 20 to 30 is getting certainly above average, and then 30, or if you're certainly over 40 seconds, that's more like elite level endurance athletes. So just to give you some sort of frame of reference for that. So a bit about me. Darko, I know you asked about me, so I'm finally getting to me and my slide. So I got into this because I had to. My name's Jason Ryer. I'm the founder of Zen Strength. I'm a performance nervous system coach and a breathwork guide based here in northern Thailand, in the city of Chiang Mai, not Shanghai. Sounds a bit similar. But yeah, I've been doing this. I've been guiding people here locally for over 5 years through various breathwork practices. Oftentimes with my workshops, we do cold exposure and ice baths as well. You may have heard of Wim Hof, and so this is much in line with the Wim Hof method. I'm not a certified Wim Hof practitioner. I am a certified health coach, certified breath coach. And I'll get into the certification of my breathwork training later on in this presentation. But for now, suffice it to say, I've worked with a lot of people. And, I had my own struggles, my own issues. I used to be a terrible sleeper at fatigue, snoring, and it was a health alarm. I thought I was having a heart attack over 10 years ago. That really turned me from the world of being a software consultant and into the world of health and wellness. And I was able to solve my own health issues and then turn around and help others do the same. And so that's what I do now with my health coaching and the practices that I offer. And breathwork was a big part of that for me. And that started back in 2015, so over 10 years ago. I did see Wim Hof at a conference in Los Angeles, and he guided the audience through one round of breathwork, and that really left an impression on me. And realizing that we can use our breath as a tool. And this is the biggest mistake I see with people who go through my workshops, is that we forget about our breath. And we can use our breath as a powerful tool. We can use it to energize, we can use it to calm ourselves down, but more importantly, we can use it to find that balance, that nervous system balance. And that's what you're going to do today. That's what I'm going to teach you today. So my main mission now is to help people fix those energy leaks using their breath, so that we have energy throughout the day and we can finally shut off our brains, turn off our minds, and sleep through the night. For some of us, that sounds like a nice change of pace. So the idea here is that your breath is the switch, and the body reads the breath as a signal. And so if we don't think about our breathing, we just breathe naturally, right? It's part of our autonomic nervous system. So it's on autopilot. But we can actually, it's the one thing in the autonomic nervous system that we know we can easily control, right? So when we're not thinking about it, we may be breathing too fast, too shallow. We may be mouth breathing. And this can all be signals that we're in danger. It gives us this chronic low-level stress. And so what we can do to change that is the slow nasal light breathing that tells us that we're safe. And breath it's not just oxygen, and it's not just bigger breaths, belly breaths, diaphragmatic breaths are better. The goal here is just the right breath at the right time, because our breath changes our battery, it changes our chemical structure in our body, it changes everything. Our CO2, our pressure, our rhythm, tension, and most important, our nervous system state changes with our breath. So we're going to learn how to use our breath to change that system. And so more breathing is not always better, right? One thing that comes to mind now is I've heard a couple of times now, like people ask, and maybe in the chat, this is a good trivia question, like when we burn fat, where and how is it excreted and lost from our body? Does anybody know? I guess maybe the answer is obvious since I'm giving this talk. But yeah, if you have any ideas, some think, well, maybe it's the sweat, the urine, maybe we poop it out. But most of the fat is excreted when we exhale. So then people think, oh, well, I just need to breathe more to exhale more to burn fat. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way. So that's just a little side note about more breathing not being better. And so what is better? What will stop these energy leaks? And so we have here underbreathing. So underbreathing, also known as shallow breathing, is what happens when your body gets the message that the threat is over. So this happens for me, in my experience, a lot of times when I'm working and I'm just kind of having a staring contest at the computer, and it's probably been long overdue for a break. My mouth drops open and I start breathing shallow, right? So a lot of us are guilty of this, but then there's the other side of this. And so this is what I think most people miss, is the overbreathing. And so a lot of us, especially, I think maybe some of you guys in this group, we get into these practices like breathwork, yoga, etc., where we learn and we're taught to breathe through our diaphragm, to breathe into the belly, to breathe deep. And I just went to a workshop a few weeks ago here that I lead here in Chiang Mai, and I had a guest speaker, and she's a doctor, she's a chiropractor, and she told people to breathe deep. And so we hear it all the time, even from professionals and people who have a lot of experience, that we should be breathing deeply. And so I did that for a long time. I was like, oh, well, I need to breathe deeply. I need to breathe into my belly. That gets me into a state of presence, which may be true. But what happens when we do that is that we're over breathing. And what that technically means is that we're breathing off too much carbon dioxide when we overbreathe. And you would think, well, carbon dioxide is just a waste gas. What's the problem? Well, if we don't hold on to enough carbon dioxide, how are we going to get oxygen? So we need that carbon dioxide to exchange for oxygen. So this is the conundrum we find ourselves in, is that the more carbon dioxide we build up, the more we have to exchange for oxygen, right? And we'll talk about that more in a minute, right? And if you guys have questions or comments, you're welcome just to jump in, or I have my chat open here, so you can type in the chat as well. So now we're actually going to do the practice that you saw on the very first slide. So this is the everyday Zen breath. And it's a very simple rule. This is what I teach in all my workshops, and this is what I encourage people to take away from any and all of my workshops, events. If you take away anything, this is the #1 tool for a few different reasons. So this is going to regulate your nervous system. And this is generally how we should be breathing all the time. Because I hear when it comes to breathing and breath work, people will say, well, what about box breathing, 4-4-4? What about 4-7-8? What about all these other breath practices? And I'm like, yeah, they're good and they all serve different purposes. But why not practice the one we should be doing all the time? That's my question. And that's why I teach that. And that's why I tell people to use it. Because we can fix those energy leaks, the underbreathing and the overbreathing, with this very simple practice. Simple, but for a lot of us, not necessarily easy. But it's a simple rule: 5 count in, 5 count out, in and out through the nose, mouth is closed. So now it's your turn to practice this. And these are nice, light, efficient breaths. So it's finding that balance. So these are not big belly breaths. So go ahead and practice this now. I'll guide us through a couple of rounds. So get nice and relaxed. Feet are planted on the floor. Shoulders relaxed. Jaws relaxed. Spine is not aligned. And now you can put a hand on your belly, hand on your chest, and start breathing in through the nose. 2, 3, 4, 5, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5. In. 2, 3, 4, 5, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep going. So these are nice, light, efficient breaths. So if your eyes are open, if they're not open, you can open your eyes, and you can see, if my camera's on, I don't even know, I don't see myself, but if my camera's on, you can see I have my finger under my nose. And so you can do the same. If you put your finger under your nose, you should barely feel the air passing in and out. And you can imagine you have a feather underneath your nose. And that feather is barely breathing, barely moving. So these are just nice, light, efficient breaths. And I did not start the timer on this one, but we could do that now. So just give it a couple of minutes to tune into your breath. And I've had clients who don't like to count, kind of freaks them out, counting things. If that's you, that's okay. You don't need to count. If the breath pacer works for you, that's awesome. If not, no big deal. So just going nice and light with those breaths. I'm going to do it as well, along with you guys. All right, 2 minutes is up. So the question now is the same question I asked before. And if you want to simplify it, the question would be, how do you feel? Whatever word comes to mind. But if you want to quantify it and keep going with those metrics we did before, it would be energy, mood, and stress levels on a scale of 1 to 10. And then I got a message here that says to turn up my mic volume. So John, you asked for that. Is that for me speaking or the music or what? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
And I think the voice is okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is your everyday Zen. And if you're familiar with breathing practices, This is also known as coherent breathing, also known as resonant breathing. This has been studied in great detail by an organization called HeartMath, the HeartMath Institute. And so they came up with an actual score for coherence. And I have a device that I can use to measure it that gives me real-time feedback on my level of coherence. And that's measuring the coherence between my heart and my brain. So I see in the chat, I feel more relaxed, more calm, energy 7, mood 8, stress 6. So I'm curious, Jay, I'm actually looking back, 7, 8, 6 you had now, and 6, 8, 9 before, okay. So it looks like energy went up, stress went down. And that is the question you already answered. What changed? So I got ahead of myself there. And this is the point. Your body's giving you the data. So on this slide, I just wanted to point out, since I do offer breath work and cold therapy, cold immersion, ice baths, all that sort of thing, I see this a lot, and I'm curious. If in the chat, you can let me know if you're into ice baths. You can just type in yes, ice bath. If you're into sauna, you can type yes, sauna. And I see more and more people going to these spas and doing rounds of ice bath and sauna over a period of sometimes like 2 hours. And these are framed as places to go for recovery, right? And I started questioning that after a while. I thought, well, does that really make sense? And my conclusion was, well, not really. I mean, the drug is in the dose for sure, but the way I see people doing it, and the way I feel, honestly, because I did a session yesterday, and I went pretty hard on the sauna. I was in the sauna for almost 30 minutes, nearly 100 degrees Celsius, and it's a stress. There's no doubt about it. It adds stress to your body. Whereas the real recovery tool, I think, is simply the breath, right? The caveat to that is I think the ice bath is the ultimate nervous system reset. So if you go in the cold and you're able to regulate your breath in the cold, usually it takes about a minute or two, and then you get out, you probably generally feel pretty good for a lot of us.
Jason.
Yeah.
Jay said if you can lower the background music because it is.
Yeah.
A bit. Yes.
Okay.
So you can lower.
There we go. Thank you for that. Okay. Better? Is that good? Okay.
Thank you.
So speaking of slight stressors, that's what we'll get into next, is more activating breath work. And this is called the Zen strength breath. So this is a bit stronger. We want to practice this always seated or laying down for safety purposes, because when you do this type of breathing practice, you can lose consciousness, and bad things have happened to people doing that, standing up or even worse, in water. So Zen strength breath. why do we do the Zen strength breath? Well, what's interesting to me is we can get energy, focus, calm all in one, and we can get that nervous system reset. But I mentioned the ultimate would be like from an ice bath, but you can get it from breath work. You don't have to get cold. And so that's what we're going to learn next. And so this is a big full inhale and then letting it go, and a big inhale and letting go and repeating. So that is the rhythm breath. We'll do 30 to 40 of those. The second part is the hold. And so you're going to hold your breath and then we'll recover. So we're just going to do one round. Typically, if you follow like Wim Hof, you'll do 3 or 4 rounds. Today, it's just to practice to understand how it works for you, how it feels in your body. So we're going to get into that now. And I have a recording here that's going to guide us through it. Welcome to the Zen Strength Energy Boost, a 10-minute breathwork session designed to elevate your energy, sharpen your focus, and cultivate calm. I'm Jason Ryer, founder of Zen Strength, and I'll be guiding you through this transformative practice. We'll start with 3 rounds of powerful breathing. Each round consists of 30 deep breaths followed by a breath hold. With each round, we'll increase the length of the hold. This technique can boost your energy and mental clarity. But before we go further with that one, I just want to check in and make sure everybody can hear that okay. And we will do just the first round for today. I think I may have lost my Zoom window here. Okay, so you guys can hear that okay? Thumbs up from George. Cool. All right, here we go. So yeah, just get relaxed, comfortable, and what you're going to practice, like I mentioned, is simply, it can be in through the nose, out through the mouth, or it can be in and out through the mouth if your nose is blocked. But the idea is to get as much air as possible into the belly, up into the chest, and then letting it go. So if it helps, you can put a hand on your belly, hand on your chest, and really feel that full expansion, filling up your lungs like a big balloon and letting go, and filling up and letting go. And that's pretty much it. So it's simple, but not necessarily easy. So you're going to have to use a bit of power, a bit of strength, just on that inhale. Here we go. You can do this anytime and anywhere. You're likely to go deeper into the experience in a quiet space, laying down with your eyes closed. Here we go. Breathe into your belly, up into your chest, and let it go. Fully in, letting go. Fully in, letting go. Fully in, letting go. In and out. In, out. In, out. Keep going, following the rhythm and flow of the breather. Full expansion of your lungs, and let it go. Nice circular flow, like a wave, no pausing in between. All the way in, and let it go. Belly, chest, all the way up to your head, and let it go. In and out. As you do this, you may feel light in your head, light in your body. You may feel tingling sensations. You may see shapes, patterns, and colors. Emotions may arise. Simply focus on your breath. About 10 more breaths. Fully in, and letting go. Fully in, letting go. Belly, chest, all the way up to your head, and let it go. In, out. In, out. In, out. In, out. In, out. In, out. 2 more. All the way in, and let it go. Last one. Fully in, then let it go, and stop, and hold your breath for 1 minute. As you hold your breath, tune into your body from the tips of your toes to the top of your head and the tips of your fingers. Feel your heart rate slowing down. "30 seconds, you're halfway there. Keep holding if you can. If not, that's okay." "10 seconds left. "1 minute. Recovery breath in, all the way in, and hold at the top. And now when you're ready, release and relax, taking a moment to recover. And taking a moment to recover, back to your everyday Zen. Breathing in and out through the nose, 5 count in, 5 count out. We'll guide us through a couple of these. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5. So now is a good time to check in with your body. Perhaps you've noticed a shift, a change in your body state, in your body awareness, in your mind. And so now is a good time to answer that one simple question in one word. How do you feel? So you can drop a word in the chat. So for the first breath we did, the everyday Zen, that was to fix the energy leaks. As I mentioned, we can be under breathing, we can be over breathing. The everyday Zen stops those energy leaks. And then what we just did can build a bigger battery. So I know it can be challenging to do that. But what we did for those 30 breaths, those rhythm breaths, it makes a lot of changes in the body. And then we're holding and building carbon dioxide during the breath hold. And simply by holding that carbon dioxide for much longer than we're used to, or any amount of longer than we're used to, that allows us to get more oxygen in for more energy. So these are two very powerful tools you can use. Like I said, the everyday Zen, as the name implies, you can not just use it every day, but you can use it almost all the time. And then for the Zen power breath, or the Zen strength breath, you can use that as needed, as a nice nervous system reset and to build a bigger battery. So my suggestion for you is to find a time, maybe stack this on some other practice. Some people like to do a breath practice when they wake up in the morning, sometimes before you go to bed at night, or some kind of cue in the middle of the day that will allow you to remember and come back to this practice ongoing. And then you can track how you feel. And so I saw Darko said, I feel great. Stress level goes to 2. And then Jay, in my total calm and relaxed mode, I know because I start yawning. Okay, cool. Yeah, yawning is pretty normal. Some people fall asleep during the Zen strength breath, which I think is okay. If your body needs to sleep, then you can sleep. So my offer to you is to start with the 10-minute energy boost. So what you just did with that Zen strength breath, that is your 10-minute energy boost. I have a QR code here, and I have the link I can share as well. So that might actually be easier. I believe it's here. Hang on just 1 second. Let me see if it's live. Looks like it might be live. Yep. So there it is there. So thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. So yeah, why do this? So this can be a quick reset for energy. And so it's good for your breath, your posture, light movement. And how you do it, well, we just practice it. And if you do want to go deeper, I offer a breath and energy assessment. So you can use this to stop those energy leaks. So I'll spend about an hour with people to assess breath, energy, see what's going on, understand the goals, and then come up with a plan to fix those energy leaks. Like I said, to have energy throughout the day and finally shut off the brain and go to sleep at night. So that's also on that same page, if that's interesting for you. And then the last one is the Zen mindset reset. So this gets back to what I alluded to earlier in the conversation of my breath certification. So this is what I was certified in, was doing transformational breath work. So what this means is that we do this breath practice for a longer period of time. We go deeper, and you'll find deeper shifts in the body. So if you do that rhythm breath that you just did for more than 15 minutes, it generally takes you out of this awareness state that you're in. So what we would call like beta or high beta state, takes you more into an alpha meditative state and even deeper into a theta dreamlike state. And it actually restricts blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, which sounds like a bad thing, but we probably spend too much time in our conscious thinking mind. So it restricts the blood flow there and takes us more into our body. And so it's taking us out of our conscious into our subconscious and unconscious. And we can estimate that only 5% of our thoughts and actions that we take are from our conscious mind. So if we want to make meaningful change, and this is why we do coaching, we read books, we take courses, and oftentimes nothing changes, is because we're only acting on that 5%. And so this is why this is such a powerful practice, is that when you do this kind of breathing practice, it takes you into that subconscious, that unconscious, and that's the other 95%. Where big changes occur. Yeah.
So when you do the breath work and you start getting lightheaded, that's a good sign that you're doing it right.
Not, I mean, that happens. It's common, but it's not necessarily right or wrong. No. It's just different for everybody, if that makes sense. Because we get this severe vasoconstriction, and that affects people differently.
But if you're saying that you're restricting the blood flow to the brain, inherently it's going to mean that you do get lightheaded.
I don't get lightheaded. No.
Okay.
Some people do. Yeah. So and some people pass out. So my recommendation in that situation, if is it like lightheaded, like uncomfortable?
It's not necessarily uncomfortable. It's sort of manageable lightheadedness. I can still manage it.
Okay.
I'm not about to pass out.
Yeah, because sometimes, depending on how we're breathing, it can get us to that point where we pass out, which is safe if you're laying down, because then you just wake back up. No big deal. And what you can play with is the breath. So you can go bigger and deeper, or you can go less deep, and you can also go faster or slower. And you can also blow off less or more. So the general idea is that you're breathing in as much air as possible, and then you're just letting it out to neutral position. So it'd be full breath in, and then full breath in. So where I see people have more of those extreme reactions, not that they're bad, is when they're blowing off more, if that makes sense. So they're really blowing out all the air. Yep.
Yeah, Jason, I have the lightheaded feeling, and when it gets towards the end, I notice more sensitive lips. So whether the oxygen level's getting lower, that my lips become more sensitive. But I certainly have the lightheaded feeling as well. So just let George know, and I always have done when I've done this before. So
okay.
Yeah.
So we're manipulating oxygen and CO2, and so if we had a pulse oximeter to measure our blood oxygen saturation, we would see oxygen dip and then spike back up. So it would dip during the rhythm breath and then spike back up after the hold. And that's going to change the way we feel, for sure. So we can think of it, the way I like to think of it is it's a bit of exercise for our cardiorespiratory system, right? Without actually having to move our bodies. So the Zen mindset reset. So it goes deeply into that. So what you're describing, what you're feeling, would be to ride that out for an extended period of time. And I guide people through this with a mix of music and affirmations and a bit of hypnotic mechanisms as well. And also some releases. So allowing people to release whatever is coming in, because that tends to happen. And so what I've seen CEOs and founders of companies just shouting, screaming, crying. And the most interesting impact I saw was a woman, after doing an hour session with me, she's like, well, that's strange. My back pain is gone. Like chronic back pain she had for years disappeared in one session. So no guarantees, but it can be quite effective for a lot of people. And so we've already gotten into the Q&A, so we can continue with that. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything you want to share about how it felt, like lightheaded, like you said, the lips. What was the lips? You said they felt warm, or I don't quite remember that one. But yeah, any other questions, comments that you have?
My lips become more sensitive, Jason.
Sensitive.
More sensitive, a little tingly, but certainly I notice they're more sensitive. I feel them. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yep. So who here would admit that they're an overbreather? As I described before, like I got into a lot of these practices and realized that I was guilty of actually focusing on these belly breaths, and probably I know I was overbreathing.
So by over breathing, you mean breathing in more than exhaling, or the other way around?
So over breathing is generally what happens is we focus on, so if you put a hand on your belly and you push that out with your breath, you're over breathing essentially. So it should be so light that it's not really moving much. But yeah, a lot of us, like I said, we get into these practices and then we go the wrong direction. It's like, oh, I need to breathe into my belly and start over breathing. But more common is probably the under breathing, shallow breathing. So we see that a lot. And then a lot of the dysfunctional breathing shows up while we sleep at night as well. So the more we can do during the day to get into a good habit of breathing, the better we will be when we sleep at night, for sure. All right, guys, we'll all wrap this up. So that's it for me today. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Boom! You made it here! Good on you. Make sure you click the subscribe button below and check out the playlist at the end. If you'd like to come along to our Sunday sessions where we host a live, free Q&A for our students and members, you're welcome. I'll see you there.